Welcome to the 47th Annual New York Women in Communications Matrix Awards, celebrating the extraordinary achievements of women in the communications industry. Please join me in welcoming our illustrious dais. Honoree Chief Marketing Officer J.P. Morgan Chase, Kristen Lemkow, and her presenter, Greg Lemkow, co-head of Global Mergers and Acquisitions, Goldman Sachs. Honoree Executive Vice President, Branding and Marketing Partnerships, Meredith National Media Group, Nancy Weber. And her presenter, Tom Hardy, President, Chief Operating Officer, Meredith Corporation. Honoree Founder and CEO, Smith & Company, Judy Smith, and her presenter, Byron Pitts, co-anchor ABC News Nightline. Honoree co-anchor of Today and NBC News Chief Legal Correspondent, Savannah Guthrie, and her presenter, Matt Lauer, co-anchor Today. Immediate past president, Kim Kelleher, Chief Business Officer, Glamour, Allure, Brides, Teen Vogue, Self. President-elect Meredith Long, Senior Vice President, News, Luxury and Style, Time Inc. New York Women in Communications President, Jackie Kelly, Global Chief Operating Officer, Bloomberg Media. Corporate host, Joanna Coles, Chief Content Officer, Hearst Magazines. Honoree, Global Chief Creative Officer at FCB, Susan Cradle, and her presenter, Julie Kent, Artistic Director of the Washington Ballet. Honoree, journalist and women's empowerment advocate, Gretchen Carlson, and her presenter, Paul Feig, writer, director, and producer. Honoree, foreign correspondent, The New York Times, Rukmini Calamachi, and her presenter, Lydia Polgreen, editor-in-chief of the Huffington Post.
Who can turn the world on with her smile?
Mary Tyler Moore inspired me to go into TV news, even though some of the issues Mary faced still haven't gone away.
I would like to know why the last associate producer before me made $50 a week more than I do.
Oh, because he was a man.
I think she mentored all of us at some point. For me, it was watching, a young woman who was smart and sassy and independent.
If you can get by on 15 less a week, we'll make you a producer.
No, I think all I can afford is associate producer.
My favorite scenes with Mary Tyler Moore were probably always when she was in the office with Lou Grant, questioning him.
What religion are you?
Mr. Grant, I don't quite know how to say this, but you're not allowed to ask that when someone's applying for a job. It's against the law.
Want to call a cop?
No.
Good. Would you think I was violating your civil rights if I asked if you're married?
Presbyterian.
There's so many things about her that were great, but she was not just kind of the first career woman on TV. She was the first career woman who was completely and totally herself in that job.
What I love about Mary Tyler Moore is she's this hardworking young woman trying to make it in a man's business, and she's smart and she's funny and she's quirky, but she's also a person that's throwing her hat right up in the air and is full of joy and exuberance.
You know what? You got spunk.
Well,
I hate spunk.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the modern-day Mary Richards, Ms. Katie Couric.
You're gonna make it after all.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Or as the fourth hour of the Today Show calls it, 5 o'clock somewhere. It's great to see you all. On behalf of New York Women in Communications and our corporate host, Hearst Magazines, welcome to the 2017 New York Women in Communications Matrix Awards. Now, here's a little known fact. What precipitated Lou Grant's comment that Mary had spunk? It was because she told him she wanted to cover a woman's march. That's right. That's why we thought it was only appropriate to replace Mary's blue striped beret with something a little more of the moment. Now, as we just heard, I was not the only little girl who was inspired by Mary Tyler Moore. That big wooden M at her apartment in Minneapolis didn't just stand for Mary. It stood for modern, magnetic, and my favorite word, moxie. We, of course, lost Mary this year, but as we look back at her extraordinary life and career, I think we're reminded of the power and importance of role models. And that's what we're here to celebrate today. Yes, you ladies we're honoring have spunk. And unlike Lou Grant, I love spunk. And I'm thrilled to be your host today, or as Roger Ailes might say, your stewardess. New York Women in Communications and the Matrix Awards have always had a special place in my heart. But besides having the honor of winning a Matrix Award back in 1999, presented by someone who apparently 65 million of our fellow Americans think very highly of, Hillary Clinton, I've also had the privilege of presenting a Matrix 4 times. Now I'm the MC, so a trifecta. Clearly, I have a lot of free time. Today, you will be meeting 7 badass women who are not just shaping our world, they're changing it for the better, kind of like Spanx. First off, Rukmini Callimachi. No, that is not an appetizer in a Greek restaurant. That's the name of arguably the best reporter on the most important beat in the world. As a New York Times correspondent covering terrorism, her work explores not just what jihadists do, but how they do it. She might be the one person who actually does know more than the generals. Rukmini, by the way, flew in from Iraq just last night to join us, so please give her a round of applause. Next up, Gretchen Carlson. Gretchen, where are you? Hi, Gretchen. Where do I begin? Maybe the same way I began the last tribute I wrote for you in this week's Time magazine. I've often said when I started in TV news back in the late 1970s, harass was 2 words instead of 1. That always takes a minute to seep in. Apparently, that never really changed for some people at Fox News. Hashtag not your hot chocolate. Not only is Gretchen a Stanford grad who spent a year at Oxford, she's also a concert violinist and a former Miss America. Now she is a national feminist hero. Okay, Gretchen, enough already. Actually, Gretchen is one of my role models for having the courage to say, that's not okay. And what a difference her voice has made. Gretchen Carlson. Susan Cradle, Global Chief Creative Officer at FCB, has made a huge impact in the advertising industry. This modern-day Peggy Olson has put the kibosh on the Mad Men era. And speaking of great TV, if you're wondering who's the boss, well, she is. From that mayhem dude wreaking havoc in the Allstate commercials to those zany anthropomorphic M&Ms, that's a good word, isn't it? She's crafted some of the most memorable marketing campaigns of the last decade with no chocolate mess. So let's give her a round of applause. Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of Today. That sounds like an interesting job. Sharp as a tack and a real legal eagle, Savannah can cross-examine everyone from Kellyanne Conway to Elizabeth Warren with insight and intelligence. Meanwhile, she gets extra credit for looking far and wide to find her presenter today. I have to say, we're all very sorry that George Clooney wasn't available. Just kidding, Matt. And Kristen Lemkow, Chief Marketing Officer, JP Morgan Chase, was named one of the top 50 CMOs last year, and she's a lifelong Red Sox fan as well. Oh, I'm so sorry. The rest of my glowing introduction just mysteriously disappeared. So weird. Go Yankees. Oh, wait, here it is. Kristen operates under the principle that brands should be purpose-driven above all else. In fact, she's dedicated much of her time to preventing gun violence and breaking the cycle of poverty. She believes deeply in the importance of paying it forward by cultivating a culture at JP Morgan that helps young people learn the ropes and get ahead. But the toughest part of her job, of course, is getting Jamie Dimon to do an interview, or not. That's a little inside joke, Kristen. Give Kristen a round of applause. Judy Smith. So what can we say about the woman who inspired Olivia Pope in Scandal, our Thursday night guilty pleasure? Judy was the master of disaster for President George H.W. Bush, represented Kobe Bryant, and helped Sony deal with that massive international fallout from the North Korean hack triggered by a Seth Rogen movie. No, you cannot make this stuff up. But as far as I know, she hasn't gotten to make out with Tony Goldwyn, and in my opinion, that's a real scandal. Let's have a round of applause for Judy Smith. And finally, Nancy Weber, Executive Vice President, Branding and Marketing Partnerships at Meredith, and past president of New York Women in Communications. Nancy has a brain for business and a heart for good. She does great things quietly behind the scenes, but today, whether she likes it or not, the spotlight is on her. So please give it up for this incredible slate of accomplished women. And now I'd like to introduce Jackie Kelly, President of New York Women in Communications, Chief Operating Officer, Bloomberg Media, Bloomberg LP. Jackie?
Well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much, Katie. I am Jackie Kelly, Chief Operating Officer of Bloomberg, but it is such a treat to be the President of New York Women in Communications. And as you know, New York Women in Communications is your host today for the 47th Matrix Award, and we could not be more excited about our honorees today. On behalf of our membership, our leadership, and our board of directors, thank you for joining us. These 7 women are exemplary in their leadership, in the role they play in the organizations, the people they bring along with them, and the mentoring that they have done to continue to lead women in communications across all fields. They are truly people who are connecting the world. New York Women in Communications is 2,000 members strong. We are unique in that we support women across all roles in the communication industry and at all levels. We have students and we have CEOs, and we welcome everyone in between. I'd like to thank our corporate members that are here today. First, our corporate host, Hearst, Bloomberg, Condé Nast, Dow Jones, IPG, Meredith, the New York Times, and Time Inc. A huge round of applause for our corporate members. We appreciate the role that these corporate members allow us to play to really be a resource outside of the organization, but actually bringing resources in to support the women of these organizations. And if your company is not a member, I hope you will consider joining us as we work to attract, inspire, connect, educate, and retain women in the communications industry. While representative of different areas across our industry, these women today have a lot in common with the many winners over the past 5 decades. And if you are a past Matrix winner in the audience, I'd like you to stand up so we can recognize you. Those are some pretty amazing women in our industry. Thank you all for being here. Today is not only about honoring the past and the present, it is also about recognizing and celebrating the future. And our scholarship programs helps build the next generation of leaders in our industry. Since 1998, New York Women in Communications has awarded more than $1.5 million worth of scholarships, and we like to think we are just getting started. Having spent some time with this year's scholarship winners, I can promise you a couple of things. I think there's a Matrix winner among them, if not several. And if I were all of you, I would get your recruiting teams ready, because this is an exceptional group of young women that you'll meet later in the program. Events like today do not happen without the support of companies and individuals who care deeply about supporting this industry. So I have a few more thank yous. First, our sponsors, who allow us to celebrate these incredible women and support the industry. It would not be possible without you. First, the amazing leaders at Hearst, who was our corporate host, David Carey, president, Joanna Coles, chief content officer, and Ellen Levine, editorial consultant. I'd also like to thank Michael Roth and IPG for hosting our VIP green room, as well as Shelley Zallis and the posse at the Female Quotient for hosting our Confidence Lounge today. Many of the scholarships we are giving today have been sponsored by companies that have shown their commitment year after year, including, again, Hearst Magazines, Glamour, IPG, the Meredith Corporation, Scholastic, and foundations such as the Carlozzi Family Foundation and the Anne Ligori Foundation. And the Esperanza Scholarship is awarded to a student of Hispanic heritage funded by a former Matrix recipient, Daisy Esposito Ula. We also thank Stitch Fix, the leading online retailer and personal stylist service who has outfitted all of our scholarship winners today. You will notice they are fantastic. And finally, New York Women in Communications is a volunteer organization, and I want to thank the board of directors as well as our dedicated committee chairs. There is a lot of work that goes into these efforts, and it could not be possible without our volunteers. So a huge round of applause to all of you. I have two more thank yous, and then you're done with me. Kim Kelleher, a past president who did so much to leave her imprint on this organization. We thank you. And Meredith Long, our incoming president. We are so grateful that you chose to take the helm and can't wait to see what you will do next. And with that, thank you again for being here. I will turn it over to Joanna Coles, Chief Content Officer of Hearst and a 2013 Matrix Award winner.
Thank you, Jackie, and very nice to see everybody this year at the Sheraton, as we know we couldn't be at the Waldorf where we normally are because it was bombed in Homeland. So on behalf of Hearst, it's such a long room, I can't tell if that joke got to the back. On behalf of Hearst, I am thrilled to be here and really happy to welcome you to the Matrix Awards. It really is a celebration of women in media. I hope you all feel the power and the energy flowing in this room. And if you're wearing an estrogen patch, you can take it off. You'll be fine for the rest of the day. You make the media business run on every level, in every discipline, from print and broadcast journalism to advertising, marketing, digital, public relations, and more. I feel a little high from it, to tell you the truth. And today we're honoring a group of amazingly accomplished women who inspire us all. We're friends, we're colleagues, we're competitors, we're rivals, but I'm sure there's all one thing we can agree on. This lunch is Mike Pence's nightmare. It's enough to make him pray for a gay conversion. Back to the women. I just came off on script. Sorry about that. All right, where are we? We wake up every day with Savannah Guthrie, mum to a newborn. She returned to work early and interviewed a former president on her first day back. Rumini Kalimaki, who risks life and limb to enlighten us about ISIS and Islamic extremism. Susan Cradle, who uses her creativity to help us look at everything in new ways, from candy to car insurance. Kristen Lemkow, who champions change, purpose, and giving back, both corporately and personally. And Gretchen Carlson, who reminds us that it is our responsibility to stand up and speak out to ensure a safe working environment. Can we just have another round of applause for the scalp she got last week? It is so hard to do that, and it's extraordinary. Really, really well done. Nancy Weber, who shows us how we can do well while doing good, pairing business strategy with social change initiatives. And Judy Smith, whose work as a crisis communications expert is so inspiring. It motivated, as we heard earlier, the incomparable Shonda Rhimes to develop a red-hot television show and a character played by Kerry Washington. It doesn't get much better than that. The women in this room are driving the conversation in news, entertainment, technology, fashion, beauty, and beyond. And today, we're also raising funds to support and foster the next generation of women in media, probably New York Women in Communications' most important mission. So congratulations to the 2017 NYWICI scholarship winners. They're 19 smart, ambitious, creative young women, the future leaders of our industry. And it's our responsibility to mentor, to encourage and advise them as they make their way in their careers. And it's their responsibility to show us how to download apps and show us how to work them. In this moment of enormous change in every area of media, I am happy to report that one thing is consistent: the incredible work done by women. And today's Matrix honorees are outstanding professionals in their fields, and their contributions to our industry and to our culture make them role models for us all. And we are not going back. On a personal, professional note, I'm awed every day by my extraordinarily talented female colleagues at Hearst magazine, sitting down at the front here. Simply put, Hearst would not be the thriving company that it is without their energy, their hard work, their imagination, and their determination. There's no question that women make an enormous difference. So thank you all for being here to toast these remarkable overachievers. Let's keep the power and energy flowing, and as we continue to help and inspire each other in all aspects of our lives and careers. Thank you.
Our whole mission is to educate and help and make a change. I was fortunate enough to have a mom who told me every single day, you can be whatever you want to be. And I believed her. Well, I was a really serious classical violinist as a child. That was my career. Then I burned out. Then I became Miss America. What? I mean, I was a chubby kid who grew up in a small town in Minnesota. I've always said that I'm a better mom because I work. When I come home at the end of the day and I look at the two cherub faces of my children, I think, wow, I am so lucky. I'm a reformed perfectionist, and that's what I tell my children all the time. Nobody's perfect. It's about helping the next generation to empower them, to make them feel better about themselves. It's really paramount to me, is helping young women and girls achieve everything that they can be. I never thought that I would be the face of sexual harassment. We all need to stand up and speak up together. So whether it's sexual harassment in the workplace, or not getting equal pay, or not having the front seat in the boardroom, or being bullied at school, we need to all take a pledge to say to each other, we're going to support each other and we're going to speak up. And the reality is, in 2017, unfortunately, almost every woman still has a story, and we need to change that.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first presenter, Paul Feig.
First of all, just to say what an honor it is to be here with all these fantastic women. It's really, and thank you to the Matrix Awards. This is unbelievable. Gretchen Carlson is the bravest woman I know, and I know a lot of brave women. When I first read that Gretchen had filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against Fox News' CEO, Roger Ailes, the thing I said was what we were most of us were thinking. Damn. I mean, you don't see that kind of bravery this often in this business that we call show. Talk about taking on a behemoth, and look what her bravery did. She cracked the wall. Nope, she actually blew a fucking hole in that wall. And she created an avalanche that we are still seeing the fallout from today. Thank God. It all started with you, Gretchen. But Gretchen has always been impressive. Valedictorian of her high school class, an honors graduate from Stanford, studied at Oxford University in England, a child prodigy violinist who performed as a soloist with the Minnesota Symphony Orchestra at age 13, and the first classical violinist ever to win the Miss America crown. Once she settled her lawsuit with her former network, she could have easily disappeared and lived a quiet life. But she didn't. She has made fighting sexual harassment her full-time job. She's committed herself to helping other women who are going through the same situations in the workplace and beyond, reaching out to them personally, as well as writing a book and making a documentary on the subject, and preparing to testify on Capitol Hill against binding arbitration agreements that allow companies to keep sexual harassment complaints private. Gretchen Carlson is walking the walk and talking the talk. And I could not be more in awe of her. Now, I read that Gretchen is inspired by two songs that she listens to when she works out. Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive and Destiny's Child's Survivor. But I would like to suggest that she also listen to a third song, Katy Perry's Roar, because this amazing woman is roaring loudly now, and she is making the world a better place for women because of it. It is my great honor to present the 2017 Matrix Award honoree, my hero, Gretchen Carlson.
Shut the hell up. So what if someone said a couple things to you? Grow up and stop whining. You're too ugly to be sexually harassed. Skank. Hi, everyone. I'm Gretchen Carlson, and on July 6, 2016, I jumped off a cliff all by myself. Soon after, I determined I wasn't going to shut up and sit down. And over the last 9 months, I've heard from thousands of women, who many for the first time have shared their stories of shame and pain too. Sadly, as we've just heard, it turns out even in 2017, every woman has a story. I never expected to be the face of sexual harassment, but now as one of my missions, I've already started my advocacy on Capitol Hill to change laws to ensure a better workplace for all women. And for the first time ever, I'm providing a playbook for women in my upcoming book, Be Fierce. As a kid, my grandfather nicknamed me Sparkles. But it turns out, as an adult, I've really become quite a badass. I grew up in this small town in Anoka, Minnesota, Halloween capital of the world, home of Garrison Keillor. I was lucky to have a mom who told me I could be anything I wanted to be as long as I worked hard. Serious concert violinist, Stanford University graduate, used my musical talent to become Miss America, crisscrossed the country for 25 years in television news. My life motto I wear on my wrist every day, Carpe Diem. And that means I do seize every day, every opportunity, and I never, ever give up. Keys to success: being ultra-organized, visualizing yourself achieving every goal, and understanding the beauty of learning from failure. But more than anything else is help. Thank you, Paul, for being one of the enlightened men who publicly supported me during an incredibly tough time. And most importantly, for making bridesmaids. My kids think you are so cool. Thank you to these other amazing women of accomplishment on the stage with me for inspiring countless others. Thank you to my lawyers, Nan, Marty, and Neil, and to the brilliant women advising me on who Gretchen will be next, Cindy and Jody. Thank you to my supportive parents, my husband, Casey, who has always encouraged me to live my life to the fullest, and to my 2 children here today as well, Kaya and Christian. Thank you, Christian, for being my sunny optimist. You wake up every day and you bounce out of bed ready to take on the world. And just looking at you makes me smile and feel better no matter what else is going on in my life. As Mommy always tells you, you are my boy. Kaya, thank you for being so brave on your first day of school this year, when the current events teacher called you up to the front of the room and asked you to tell the class what happened to your mommy over the summer. You dealt with it like a champ. And a few weeks later, when you finally told off a few mean girls who'd been bugging you, and you came home and you told me, Mommy, I saw you do it, so I knew I could do it. Giving the gift of courage is why I recently started my fund, Gift of Courage, to empower women and girls, because in giving back, we understand more fully what it means to be a whole person. So today, if you are feeling subjugated or put down in any realm of your life, I'm here today to inspire you to speak up, because as women, we will not be underestimated, intimidated, or set back by misogynists who stereotype and demean us. We will not be silenced by the ways of the establishment or the relics of the past. We will stand up together and use our voices to become the women we were meant to be. We will be fierce. Thank you.
The work-life balance thing, I'll be the first one to tell you, I do not have it figured out. Now, I remember when I was coming up in my job, I would look up at a bunch of women who didn't go to their kids' soccer games or, who worked all weekend and were proud of that, and thinking, well, I'm not going to make it because that's not who I want to be. The two most important moments in my life, which I think end up becoming the most important moments in your career, for very different reasons. So the first would be the birth of both my children. And then the second one was when my father died. My dad was the happiest guy who you ever met. He never had a bad day. It makes you realize, actually, when it's all over, you want to look back on what was most important. My mom is great. My mom is really tough and really smart. And I learned that you can be completely yourself and be happy with that. Steve has been an unbelievable support system for me. He stays home with our kids. He makes the house run. He makes our life run. And the person who's been the most influential in my career has been Gordon Smith. Gordon Smith's leadership team is half women because he really will take a bet on somebody who he knows can do the job and wait for you to grow into it. Marketing and communications is part science and part heart. Our business is helping people make the most of their money. That's a pretty intimate relationship with a consumer. Find your tribe. Who are the women who you would be friends with and who would be friends with you if you met on the outside? I honestly think there has never been a better time to be a woman in work.
Please welcome Greg Lemkow.
Thank you. It's with great pride and admiration that I present today my big sister, Kristen Lemkow. Kristen has been an incredible role model to me and real friend for our entire lives. And as our careers have progressed and we've traveled in the same business circles, I invariably run into a client or a colleague and have the same exchange. Greg, I met your sister the other day. That's nice. She is awesome. I said, yeah, she is. But she tells me that you wouldn't know how to read if it wasn't for her. It's like, really? Every time? And while you may actually have taught me how to read, I'm pretty sure I would have figured it out eventually. But I do know that you taught me a lot. And while there are a few moments in your teenage years, actually the entirety of your teenage years, I must admit I would not have foreseen you up here winning such a prestigious award on this stage. But I tell you, once you hit the professional world, you've been an unbelievable force of nature. You were in helicopters checking out mines in Indonesia for Freeport in your 20s. You became a trusted confidant to the great Larry Bossidy at Allied Signal in your early 30s, and you've had just an incredible run of success at J.P. Morgan Chase, culminating in your current role as Chief Marketing Officer. That is a serious job. Your success has been awe-inspiring. And importantly, in each role, you've brought energy, intellect, and self-confidence, but most of all, you've brought fearlessness. Fearlessness in the strength of your own convictions, fearlessness to challenge the conventional wisdom, and fearlessness to truly innovate. But most of all, regardless of age or gender, you've brought fearlessness to show that not only did you always belong in the room, but that you were the smartest person in it. I'm so proud of all that you've accomplished, and I'm excited to see all that you'll continue to accomplish. And as proud of you as we all here today, your family, our siblings, Chip and Holly, our mom, your husband Steve, family and friends. There's nobody who'd be prouder than you than our dad. He relished in every success you had, no matter how big or how small. And he beamed with joy at every accomplishment. So while he's not with us here today, I know he's looking down at us in this ballroom with a big smile on his face and saying, "Kristen, you hot ticket." So on behalf of Big Guy and on behalf of all of us, congratulations on receiving the 2017 Matrix Award. We're so proud of you and we love you.
Thank you. This means so much to me to be up here, and much more so that it's my brother who is the one to introduce me. Greg is the person in your life who never lets you down and is the person who you always strive to be something approaching the kind of superhuman who he is. As you can imagine, we actually don't often tell each other how much we like each other, so it's super helpful to have hundreds of you here to kind of hear all this from him. And you kind of had to get the big sister part in there, didn't you? So when they first told me I got this award, I actually was almost afraid they made a mistake. I was floored and so honored because this is not just an award for what you do, it's an award for what you do with what you do. So when you get to these jobs, you think you've reached the peak and then you realize it's just the beginning. It's the beginning of an opportunity to influence the way people think. And in the field of communications, when things like brain hacking and fake news are suddenly a thing, you realize it's the people who are going to make a difference. So I have two pieces of advice for the scholarship students in the audience, one personal and the other professional. One personal, and trust me when I say this, choose your partner well. There is no more impactful decision to your career and to your life than the person you choose to raise children with. They can either be supportive or disruptive in ways you can't yet anticipate. My husband, Steve, has not only taken care of our children and our life, but also his dying mother and his dying sister, while I get to go off and do things like this in a way that has left me awestruck, and there should be an award for that. Second, I said it in the video, find your tribe. Find the people who you would have been friends with had you met them anywhere at work, and when you do, have each other's back, help each other out, look out for each other. You will have way more of an impact as a force for good together, and you will have more fun. Work is great, but people are better. I'm lucky because I have both my work tribe and my original tribe here. As Greg said, my mom, my two brothers, my sisters-in-law, my husband Steve, and my work husband Joe, and his husband Colin. These are the people who both never fail to support me and keep me in check, and everybody needs that. And of course, my father, who is here in spirit, who would have been the happiest person in the room or in any room. Thank you.
I love what I do. And I think that the biggest lesson that I can impart is that once you find something you love, it's as if you suddenly have a wind at your back. When I decided to become a writer, that was actually a really controversial thing in my family because pretty much everybody in my family is a doctor. And Mihai, my stepdad, was the one who stood up and he said, "Nope, this is an absolutely legitimate pursuit. She's a very good writer, and I support her." I came to this profession quite late. I was 27 when I began as a freelance reporter in India. Women journalists are now doing every job that I think men have done. I hope that in the future that I will see more and more female managers. That's a very important thing. More and more heads of sections, editor-in-chiefs that are women. There are still far too few of those. You know, I can't wait to get up in the morning and check my Twitter account and see, you know, what the latest news is from ISIS. It's so much fun to go out and, you know, interview an ISIS prisoner who has just been captured on the battlefield, interview people that just escaped an ISIS stronghold. What's kept me going is once I started doing this, it's honestly just so much fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lydia Polgreen.
I first met Rukmini when we were correspondents together in West Africa. I had recently been named the West Africa bureau chief of the New York Times. She was the new kid on the block from the Associated Press. And I wondered, what's up with this woman? She filed an incredibly beautiful story that I envied. It was about how young people, the marriage rituals of young people in Guinea-Bissau, and how the women choose the men and not the other way around. And there was an amazing poetry to the way that she wrote, and there was the detail and the gorgeousness of the way that she rendered these beautiful love stories. I looked her up and I said, oh, she's a poet, that's why. So that kind of special touch to her work is something that Rukmini has brought, whether she's covering the Christmas tree lighting ceremony in a small town, or interviewing women who are sex slaves of ISIS. She brings that touch to everything she does. We were competitors, of course, but we were also friends. We worked side by side many times. And the last time I worked in the field with Rukmini was in Mali, and rebels aligned to al-Qaeda had taken over the northern part of the country, and the French military had arrived to help the Malian government sweep them away. We were all desperate to get to the newly liberated Timbuktu. There were no flights, all the roads were closed, but that wasn't going to stop Rukmini. She hired a 4x4 with an exceptionally brave driver. She mapped out several different routes. One possible route was, we looked at a map together. There was lots of rivers and deltas, and she said, no, I think if we just go this way, we could get through them and we could actually get up to Timbuktu. That didn't work out. But eventually, she sweet-talked and bullied her way through every roadblock. Ever the great colleague, she luckily had invited me along for the ride, and luckily enough, we made it to Timbuktu. At the time, of course, I was a reporter for the New York Times, and I thought, I'm the big kid here, I'm going to do all the great stories. But I could only watch slack-jawed as she scooped me again and again and again. When she heard that al-Qaeda was using a government building as its headquarters, she went to that building and scoured every inch of it and took away trash bags full of documents that detailed the way that the group ruled and had set up an Islamic State, their justice system, the way that they charge people taxes, the way that al-Qaeda fighters filed expenses. Nobody had read these stories before. They were amazing. And it wasn't just about telling the story of the terrible things that the militants had done. She also held the Malian government to account. When she heard about atrocities that had been committed by the Malian army, that they had carried out summary executions of Arabs, she actually took a shovel out to the desert with her Malian colleague, and they attempted to dig up the bodies of victims of these summary executions. It was extraordinary work. So once I went back to New York and became an editor on the international desk, I thought, if you can't beat them, you may as well hire them. So my first order of business was to get Rukmini Callimachi a job at the New York Times as a correspondent. It's one of the things I'm most proud of in my career. Her fierce and penetrating coverage of terrorism is utterly unique. Rukmini is an exemplar of relentlessness, of courage, of rigor, of humanity and kindness. It's an honor to present her this award.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm Rukmini, and I cover the Islamic State now for the New York Times, which is possibly the most vicious terrorist group in the world. It was not always so, and in the few minutes that I have with you, I wanted to talk about beginnings, because mine were particularly humble in this profession. I came to journalism quite late. I was 27 when I began as a freelance reporter, and 28 when I decided to try to get a full-time job in this profession. So what I did is I went online and looked up the top 100 newspapers by circulation in the US. I had an Oxford degree, a Dartmouth degree, and I thought, this is going to be a piece of cake. I printed out my rather thin CV and sent it out to the top 100 newspapers. And of the top 100 newspapers, I got exactly 2 replies. And of those, only one offered me a job, and it was an internship. The newspaper was called the Daily Herald of Arlington Heights, Illinois. They paid me so little that A, I ran out of gas on my way to the office during my first month of work. And shamefaced, I had to call a colleague to come and pick me up on the shoulder of the I-90 in Chicago. And B, when I was working on a story about people on welfare, I learned that I actually qualified for food stamps. The first assignment that I was sent to cover was the municipal Christmas tree lighting ceremony in a small town in Illinois called Streamwood, Illinois, population then 30,000. You know the ritual. There's a Christmas tree in the center of town, and they light it ahead of the holidays, and my job was to go and interview people about this ritual. So I guess my story was okay, because my editor then assigned me to do a story about the Christmas tree lighting ceremony in Hanover Park, Illinois, another little town. And then, to my horror, I was assigned to do a third Christmas tree lighting ceremony in the town of Bartlett, Illinois. And at this point, I really thought my life was over. I was dreaming of becoming a foreign correspondent, but apparently my full-time beat had become Christmas tree lighting ceremonies. I knew I had to double down and dig deep to figure out how to elevate these parochial stories so that an editor somewhere might take notice of me. And so I poured myself into every assignment, trying to find that one ray of light, that one tiny, interesting detail that might make people care. But you know what? As humbling as that experience was, the skills I learned then, how to make something boring interesting, are the exact same skills that I use today when I'm sitting across from a captured Islamic State fighter, looking him in the eye and asking him to describe to me the atrocities that he's committed. I'm deeply honored by this award. And in closing, I would like to say that one of the things that has buoyed me in this profession is the female mentors that I've made along the way. At my first newspaper job at the Daily Herald, Renee Trappy, who was my very first editor, looked over my many mistakes, including misspelling the name of the mayor of the town that I was covering. Later at the AP, Mary Rajkumar became my editor, also a woman. I felt invisible until Mary came on the scene, and under her watchful gaze, I became a Pulitzer finalist twice. And what Lydia did not mention is that I had applied every single year to the New York Times, starting in 2005, up until 2014, coming in repeatedly, interview after interview, meeting after meeting, and it wasn't until Lydia took an interest in my work that I finally came to the Times. I'm deeply thankful to the Matrix Committee. I thank my husband, Mikhail Lafarge, my mother and father, my editors at the New York Times, and everyone who has helped me along the way. Thank you.
I have always been a very curious person, so I don't sit down very often. I met a friend of a friend who was an associate editor at Glamour magazine, and the light went off, and I was like, I gotta get a job in the magazine business. After I got my first job, my dad asked me, how many magazines do you think we subscribe to? And I guessed 15 or 20, and he said 65. The person who's inspired me most in my life has been my mom. She taught me from a very young age that women were just as capable as men, and in most cases are even more so. I'm a problem solver, and I love when we have issues at work or things we're trying to break through. I think some of the best ideas still come from getting together and having a good old-fashioned brainstorm. This is a great company to work for. We have a lot of smart people, and I like being around smart people. I think our secret sauce has been that we're really a very collaborative group. At the end of the day, we kind of always lock arms and do what's best for Meredith. It's very important to have a plan B. I always have a plan B.
Please welcome Tom Hardy.
Good afternoon. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to present my friend and colleague, Nancy Weber, with the 2017 Matrix Award. This is a special moment for me as well as Nancy, as I think of everyone who's had a great impact on my 31-year career in the business. Nancy is at the top. To give you an idea of Nancy's importance to me, my wife Holly and I have been together since high school. That's 37 years of my life. Nancy and I have been together for 25 of those years at 3 different companies with only brief times apart. Through all these years, she's been a trusted partner who, like my wife, has consistently made me look better than I am. I first met Nancy at the New York Times Magazine Group back when the Times was in the consumer magazine business. I was working in the corporate finance group and was thrilled when I got my first promotion to associate business manager for McCall's magazine. Nancy was already there in a senior role as marketing director. I was extremely happy for the opportunity to finally get out and work on a brand where the magic happens and the revenue is generated. Since it was end of the fiscal year, my first very important, exciting assignment was to make sure that everyone on the sales and marketing team had their T&E reports up to date and submitted to accounting so they could close the books for the year. As I went around and prodded everyone to get their expense reports submitted, I learned that Nancy Weber was a little behind. So I stopped by her office and gently asked her to submit her expenses. Now, anyone who has ever worked with Nancy knows her office is, shall I say, not the most organized. A kind person would call it a whirlwind of creative activity. Nancy would tell you everything is at her fingertips, someplace on her desk. She would always say, in that nice Midwestern way, "Oh, sure, Tom, I have my receipts. I just need a little time to pull it together." After a few weeks of gently nudges, it became clear that Nancy had no intention of getting her T&E reports submitted. It was not a pressing opportunity. Rather, her focus was always on discovering the next creative idea to win the business. Finally, I went to our corporate head of finance and let him know that everything was complete with the exception of Nancy Weber, our marketing director. I had failed. He broke out into a laugh and said, "Don't worry, Tom. Nancy Weber hasn't completed a T&E report in over 3 years. We have an ongoing Nancy Weber accrual in place." Welcome to the world of creatives, Tom. We quickly became perfect partners and fast friends. Nancy with a new idea every minute, and me trying to exert a little discipline and control over this creative genius. Nancy has always made me feel part of her team. At McCall's, I was one of only 2 men on the brand team of over 60 people. As you might expect, I was an awkward participant at countless conference room parties, such as wedding and baby showers. But not to feel left out, Nancy threw me a surprise baby shower when my first daughter was born 23 years ago, actually this week. Even though that Holly and I went on to have 3 more children, it was my first and only baby shower, thank God, because I remember the pink ribbons and the pink balloons. Over her career, Nancy has been a driving force behind some of the biggest brands in media. She has generated literally thousands of creative ideas and has helped our advertising clients interact with all of our brands and sell products to their consumers. Equally important, Nancy has mentored hundreds of young marketers, helping them launch their careers in our great industry and counseled countless leaders along the way. This year, the Meredith Corporation will celebrate its most profitable year in 160-year history, thanks in no small part to Nancy and her team. I am forever grateful for her counsel and her friendship over the last 25 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating our 2017 Matrix Award winner, Nancy Weber.
Thanks, Tom. You know, it's hard to believe that not too long ago, we were crazy 20-somethings launching golf balls off your balcony at the McCall's LPGA Classic. Who would have guessed we'd be here 25 years later? Your friendship and support over the years has been invaluable, and you're one of the reasons I'm here today. And just to set the record straight, I submit my expenses weekly now. I have to say, I'm one of the luckiest people in the world to be in the business I'm in, and it's such an honor to be here with a group of such accomplished women. When I first heard I was winning or receiving a Matrix, I was seriously speechless. The first thought that went through my head was, They know I work in marketing, right? You see, most of the time, our role is behind the scenes, making things happen and making others look good. When business is up, marketing rarely gets any credit. And when it's down, it's usually the first place where the fingers are pointed. We create the ideas that sell and the programs that win the awards. But very rarely are we the ones to accept them. But you know what? We're cool with that. That's the gig we signed up for. Today, though, you are honoring 2 marketers, so maybe the tides are turning. I like to think of marketing as the connective tissue in an organization. Our role is to connect the dots and make big things happen for our brands, our consumers, and our partners. I love to do the unthinkable, to motivate others to think beyond the obvious, to find a way around obstacles, and to create opportunities where they don't exist. I truly believe that when we are pushed beyond our comfort zone, we can reach new heights. And that's when the magic happens. It's my favorite part of the job. It's what energizes me and keeps me looking ahead to the next challenge. My advice to young professionals is to look for and take advantage of every opportunity. When I look back on my career, I'm grateful for so many of these experiences. At 24, if I hadn't agreed to meet someone important at 5 a.m. to review a new sales presentation, I would have never met Cy Newhouse and had the opportunity to hear his views on our business firsthand. Several years later, when working for Golf Digest, we helped Callaway Golf celebrate their IPO by building a 100-foot putting green in front of the New York Stock Exchange. After they rang the closing bell, several dignitaries and celebrities gave it their best to sink a hole-in-one to raise $1 million for the Prostate Cancer Foundation. And 5 years ago, during the Family Circle Cup, we had the opportunity to honor Billie Jean King and the Original Nine for the 40th anniversary of the Women's Tennis Association. Together with our partner Dove, we hosted a conversation with these amazing athletes, along with tennis greats Venus Williams, Chris Evert, and Martina Navratilova. And we heard firsthand what these women sacrifice to take a stand for pay equity. And more recently, to demonstrate the power of print and digital media, Meredith launched the first ever sales guarantee. Imagine a media company, and now the entire magazine media industry, ensuring marketers an increase in sales based on an advertising investment. So if there's one thing I've learned, it's that if you can dream it, you can do it. Big ideas, though, are only possible with the support of a team that believes in your vision. Thank you to all my teammates, past and present, who put their trust in me and gave me their unqualified dedication. And before I go, I'd like to thank my amazing parents. My mom taught me to be fearless, and my dad once told me I'm right. Only once, and it's something he's lived to regret ever since. But honestly, the reason I believed I could do anything I set my mind to is because they told me I could. To my brother and sister-in-law and all my friends from throughout my life who traveled a great distance to be here, you're the best. So finally, a huge thanks to New York Women in Communications for this incredible honor.
And now, returning to the podium, Katie Curry.
While recognizing the work of this year's 7 outstanding women, today's event also raises money to support the New York Women in Communications Scholarship Program. So prepare to be dazzled by the female leaders of the future. To date, over $1.5 million have been provided in scholarships to help build the next generation of leaders in communications. Because of both corporate and individual donations, this year, New York Women in Communications was able to award $112,000 to 19 promising students at both the undergraduate and graduate levels, and that deserves a round of applause. A big thank you to Stitch Fix, the leading online personal styling service, for dressing our winners today. So now let's take a look at who they are in this video that was produced by Condé Nast.
Sorry, can I start that one again?
Oh, that's a tough question. Should I not use my hands? I'm an Italian, so.
If you'd asked me what communications was when I was in middle school, I would honestly have no idea.
What I find so fascinating about communications is that although it has existed since global prehistory, it continues to change and undulate with the modernizations of today's world.
This profession has the capability to reach millions and millions of people with a message.
And at its core, I feel like communications is talking to people, and I really, really enjoy that.
I especially love how women can use writing and use magazine writing to really make a difference and to express views that need to be said.
I'm inspired by independent media makers and especially people who have marginalized voices.
I think what inspires me most is the thought of becoming a role model when I'm older.
The sexism that women face in sports, both on the communication side of things and playing them, is something that really inspires me to go out there and try and change kind of the perception of that.
I'm really motivated and inspired by people who are extremely resilient and don't take no for an answer.
In the future, I want to create content that brings people joy, hopefully makes them laugh, whether that's by producing a TV series or films, creating digital content, or something that doesn't even exist yet.
In the next 10 years, I see myself still working on progressive political causes like women's rights, LGBT rights, and climate change.
I think that I'll be happiest working in fundraising and spreading the word for a nonprofit or an organization that I feel really passionate about. I hope to continue to get to know people, help them tell their stories, and in doing so, help them make a positive change in their life.
The New York Women in Communication Scholarship has already opened a huge door for me.
This grant has had a tremendous impact on me.
Because it's really given me the option to choose where I want to go
and focus more on my education.
It's given me like a support system of other people who are interested in what I'm interested in.
This scholarship has given me the confidence and reassurance that hard work and determination really pay off.
It also will allow me to connect and work more closely with New York Women in Communications, an organization that I'm very proud to be a part of.
Communications is the best way to connect with people, in that it can be a powerful tool for good.
And the fact that I'm able to be a woman in communications is amazing.
So clearly our future is in very good hands. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to present to you the New York Women in Communications 2017 Matrix Scholarship winners. Once again, congratulations to our scholarship winners. I can't wait to see what you all do next, so congratulations.
I love a challenge, and when I get one, I am all in. One of the things that I've tried to do during the course of my career is really focus on the work. For me, because I've been doing crisis for so long, that feels like a normal to me. What I try to do is to convey a sense of calmness and a sense of strength and a sense of confidence, so that enables people to trust you. I had the opportunity to deliver the commencement speech at USC. My son had graduated from USC, and so he gave the introduction to the commencement speaker, and that was just one of those amazing moments in time. The fact that we are actually even discussing race and gender indicates that we have not made enough progress. Don't try to be somebody that you're not. The fact of the matter is that you are enough at who you are. Isn't it more logical to think about that, yes, I can do that instead of thinking that I can't? Like if you had a choice, think that you can do that. Because if you do, you'll turn that into action.
Ladies and gentlemen, Byron Pitts.
Good afternoon. I first met my dear friend Judy Smith in the same way many of you first met her, on television. There she was, standing quietly, elegantly, as the sentry, the steel spine holding up one of America's power brokers who had found himself on the wrong side of some crisis. There is this catchy phrase all of us, especially those of you in marketing, know all too well. The Hollywood version goes something like this. Who are you going to call when you're all alone? Pick up the phone and call. That's the fictional version. In the real world, and you've got real problems and you're alone, who are you going to call? For the past 25 years, the one name on everyone's short list is Judy A. Smith. Judy is the founder and president of Smith & Company, a strategic advisory firm with offices in Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, and here in New York City. Her client list spans the globe in every category, from Iran-Contra to Enron, General Petraeus to the Sony Corporation. Politicians, athletes, celebrities, entire countries. When the powerful have a problem to fix, they call the fixer. No smoke and mirrors, intelligence, integrity, legal and political acumen. Her talent's so rare you could make an award-winning primetime, hot and sexy television series out of it. Along with her demanding day job, Judy is co-executive producer of the ABC hit show Scandal. She served as deputy press secretary to President George H.W. Bush, a Bachelor of Science degree from Boston University, a law degree from American University. More impressive than her resume, to those of us who love and admire this great woman, it is her kind heart and her resilient spirit we admire most. Books have been written about successful people who learn to say no. No, I'll take a pass on that, my passion is this. But the remarkably successful, and by every measure, Judy and all the women we've gathered to honor, are remarkable. Judy learned to ignore no. No, you shouldn't start your own firm, too dangerous, can't be done. No, you're a black woman who seeks to be successful in an industry dominated by white men and a growing number of white women. No, you come from humble means. You can't possibly live a bold life. Judy A. Smith is a humble spirit who lives her truth boldly. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to call her my friend and to introduce her to you now, Judy A. Smith.
What y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air.
That was a big setup there. I really got nothing after that. I got to tell you. Let me just say, really, it's truly an honor and a privilege to be recognized by such an important organization as Women in Communications. You know, certainly when one starts their career, even before that, you never imagine getting an award such as this, or becoming the president's deputy press secretary, or having a show inspired by your crisis work. And by the way, I should say this because this was asked by one of our scholarship recipients. I did not have sex with the president, just in case. I just want to clarify that in case there was any mistake about that. I mean, look, you know, life unfolds in this really unexpected ways. You know, when you look back, you really do think that there are clues, you know, and from that you learn to develop this passion, and that really begins to show you what your life will be like. And sometimes I have to say it's not under that, you know, that career lens. I have a very good friend that I've known since I was 4 years old, and she calls me Pocahontas and I call her Beanhead. And she reminded me, you know, I asked her one time, I said, well, how did I get involved in this crisis, this fixer thing? And she reminded me that, that I have been doing it all my life. She reminded me of a situation, I think we were around 10 or 11, and in the neighborhood, there was this really sort of hot couple, Angela and Omar, and they broke up. And so because they broke up, the neighborhood, everybody stopped playing. And the reason why they stopped playing is because you couldn't figure out what side to take. So for 5 or 6 days, there was no after-school programs, no playing. So I decided I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it. So I got them together and sat down and brokered a peace treaty and said, the two of you need to get back together because the neighborhood is not going to make it. And so thank God they got back together. But, you know, I've always sort of had this, for me, of really making a difference in other people's lives. And as I said, it's the kind of things that you become passionate about and that grows on you. And I think one of the things that I've learned oftentimes that, you know, communications chose me. I didn't choose it, and you know, I guess part of the reason why I'm in it because I just sort of have a big mouth and can't keep it shut. But this need, I think, to speak for others and to help and assist has always been a part of who I am. And controversy over the years has seemed to find me, and it chose me, basically. And I would say that, you know, we often talk about, and, you know, we talk about the fixer. I think now in the country that we're at a point where there is, I think, a lot of dissension, a lot of distrust, and a lot of conflict. And I think too often we always readily accept limitations. There are always challenges, I think, especially for women, and in particular for minorities. But I often say that excellence is a great equalizer, and that is something that I really strive for myself. So I would encourage all of us, because we all sort of have the power to be a fixer, because there's a lot going on that needs fixing. So thank you very much. I appreciate the honor. Thank you.
Usually what you know best is what you tell best. If you're going to use your own truth, your authenticity as a human being to tap into creative stories, you better have some creative stories that are personal. I came up to New York in 1985 and never looked back. In the communications business is where I saw women thriving. Women not only were having a career in advertising, their names were on the door. So when I went in thinking advertising is a place that loves women. I actually valued diversity early on and thought that when I came into a room, I had a different truth. You know, I had a different story. I had seen the world in a different way that maybe would make the conversation a little more interesting. I don't think anyone ever tapped me on the shoulder and said, I'd like to be your mentor. What I did do was try to pick out people that I admire and listen, watch, read. I think the single greatest piece of advice I would give any person coming up in advertising or journalism is what you do matters very much. I do think the long game is about the value of what you put out into the world, and so care about that.
Please welcome Julie Kent.
Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be among such distinguished presenters and to have the opportunity to present this esteemed award to a woman that I love, respect, and admire, Susan Cradle. It may seem odd to you that Susan asked me, a former ballerina, to present her with this honor, but to me, it came as no surprise, because Susan is the kind of creative thinker that takes a wonderful opportunity for herself or her company or brand and expands and builds that opportunity to have an even greater meaning and effect on a larger scale. She connects so many dots globally every day, always empowering women and bringing humanity, accountability, and a social consciousness into her work. In essence, she thought this would be really great for me. Just as she thought that leaving American Ballet Theatre, my professional home for 30 years, to become the artistic director of the Washington Ballet was a great idea. When presented with this opportunity, hers was a voice that said, "Julie, you can do this. You have to do this. I believe in you." This wasn't just my friend, my best friend of 18 years, talking to me. This was a global leader, a woman, an advocate, a connector of ideas that translate into resonating successes. This is just one small story that describes Susan's generosity, her talent for bringing people and ideas together, her incredible sense of the possibilities that lie in every new conversation, and why she is so deserving of this award.
Hi. So I think I have a cartoon. Do you have that? Because I have no words. So Larry Day is an illustrator in Chicago, and we work together on drawings like this when I do speeches. And I was doing a talk about never finished learning to lead a couple of months ago, and I said, Larry, I want a cartoon that sort of captures what I felt like in 1985. And in 1985, I took a job at BBDO Advertising as the person that gave the receptionists their bathroom breaks. No job too small. And so I said, so let's draw something that captures that. And he drew this, and I'm the little widget on your right. And then the big widget is BBDO in New York City and all this incredible stuff that I was looking at. But when I saw it, I thought, wow, that doesn't just capture 1985. I think that captures the last 30 years. I'm always the little widget. In fact, even when I met Julie Kent, I met her, we lived in the same apartment building, and her husband said, would you like to come to the ballet? And I'm like, sure. And then I'm like, oh, my Lord, that's Julie Kent. And she was, I was like, Julie's this, world-renowned dancer, principal dancer for American Ballet Theatre, and I'm selling M&Ms with 15-second TV spots. I'm the little widget. And then today, I was like, okay, I'm here. It's my turn to be the big widget. But I'm not, I'm the little widget. I'm still the little widget. I listen to all these stories. I'm like, yep, little widget right here. I look at who's been honored before, little widget. I look out at this room, very, very little widget right now. And I want to thank you. I want to thank the Matrix Committee for letting me be a little widget again. Because what I've learned is that it all depends on how you feel when you're in that big chair feeling very small. And you can choose to be afraid, intimidated, filled with trepidation, or I think you can choose what I always sort of naturally felt was excitement, joy, anticipation of what was going to come next. How did I get here? How did this little thing get in this big experience? And so I would say to the scholars or to anyone out there, when you feel like you're the little widget in the room, do not be scared. Be so excited. Because, I mean, something great is either happening or about to happen. And if you have never been the little widget in a room, I highly recommend becoming one.
A lot of what drives me, or what has driven me over the years, is just not wanting to fail. When I come in the morning and I walk into this building, I say a silent prayer of thanks. Being an early morning show anchor is a great mom job. I want my little girl to feel strong. I want her to feel confident. My husband is somebody who very much respects and appreciates women. You know, my mom is my biggest inspiration. She showed me all sides of what a strong and powerful woman can be. I've definitely had those tense moments in interviews, whether it be President Obama or candidate Trump, where you know that the person you're interviewing does not love the question you're asking. For me, the consequence of not asking a hard question is scarier than whatever I might face across from me in terms of a person who isn't thrilled to get that particular question. I mean, the greatest thing about the Today Show is it's really, really fun, and yet it's also really important. I still can't believe that this all happened to me. You know, I feel really, really grateful. I feel very blessed. I feel lucky.
Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Lauer.
Sorry. Because Savannah is a lawyer, I think it's only appropriate that I begin today by reading something directly from the New York State statute covering awards luncheons. This is Article 2, Section 1, and I quote, "Whereas the person presenting the award to the recipient is about to heap tons of gushing praise on said recipient, the presenter is also entitled, perhaps even required, to balance the presentation with a healthy dose of negativity and embarrassing shit." It's the law. So I say that to you, and I think the first thing I'd like to mention about that is Savannah Guthrie is a klutz. I want to say it again because you have no idea. She is not your run-of-the-mill, stub your toe, spill a drink kind of klutz. Savannah is a sit down and miss the chair, walk into a sliding door, trip over a cordless phone kind of klutz. A simple walk from the dressing room to the makeup room or from our studio to the plaza is a hold-your-breath event that all too often results in carnage. When Savannah was named co-anchor of the Today Show, we immediately went out and hired a paramedic to be on call at the studio. That person has earned his money each and every day for the past 5 years, treating contusions, bruises, and sprained ankles, sometimes before the first commercial break at 7:12. It's gotten to the point where we don't walk next to her for fear that she will go down and take one of us with her. But annoyingly, that's all there is. That's the only downside to working with Savannah, other than perhaps her questionable taste in music. Think of melancholy guitar riffs bookending heart-wrenching breakup lyrics that leave you wanting to open a vein. But that's it. There's nothing else bad to say about this Matrix Award winner, quite the contrary. There is nobody, and I have gone back and studied this and researched it, there is nobody who has ever assumed the role of Today anchor who's come to this job more qualified than Savannah Guthrie. No one has ever brought a better resume to this job. Think about it. Not Garraway, not Brokaw, not Walters, not Pauley, not Gumbel, not Couric, and certainly not Lauer. No one has ever come to the Today Show with the credentials that Savannah has brought to this job. A proud graduate of the University of Arizona, a Georgetown law degree, finishing at the top of her class, a stint as a legal analyst before catching the bug to tap into her journalistic instincts and following those instincts from local markets to court TV to to MSNBC and all the way to Washington as the White House correspondent for NBC News. She's traveled the world interviewing the most powerful people and telling the stories that define our times, and always with a sense of purpose and a sense of self. I'd put that item at the top of her resume. She has a sense of self. She's goal-oriented. She sets her sights high, and she sets the sights high for people around her, and she doesn't stop until she reaches the bar and soars above it. I know I'm gushing, but she's a klutz. The person I'm happy to introduce this afternoon is more than just a driven journalist, a wonderful wife and mother 2 times over, the mother 2 times over. Actually, a wife 2 times over, too, but that's a different luncheon. That's different. She's a loving daughter and sister and friend for the ages. She's a cool chick, and I know that expression might get me banned from future Matrix luncheons, but it's true. She is a cool chick. She's a great hang. She has a sense of humor that can brighten even the darkest days of covering news. She has a smile that, without getting all Mary Tyler Moore, can turn on the world. And she cares about each and every person around her. She's a great coworker and a mentor to everyone on the staff, not just the women, but the men as well. There is something special, strange, even a little bit harrowing about working the early morning hours. When you walk in and see your coworkers at 4:45 a.m., it is not for the faint of heart. There's no place to hide. We see each other as Mother Nature rolled us out of bed. And sometimes that's not fair. Think of the way you looked when you looked in the mirror and were brushing your teeth this morning. That is our how you doing look every morning. And we have the pictures to prove it. Good moods, bad moods, happy children, sick kids, we go through it all together before the sun comes up. And so when that happens, you tend to bond with each other at that hour. Either that or you hit snooze and refuse to get out of bed. I've never felt like hitting snooze while I've been working with Savannah, and I don't take that lightly. What is most gratifying about the time we've spent together over these 5+ years is that we've come to lean on each other and depend on each other. What a gift it is to have someone by your side on live TV who you can always count on to have your back, who will finish your thoughts and your sentences, who'll teach you something every day and be willing to learn something along with you. What a joy it is to have someone who cares about the us and not the me, and who makes it look so easy. It is for all of these reasons and so much more that you've made a great choice in choosing her to receive a Matrix Award, and I am proud to be the person to give it to her. So ladies and gentlemen, your Matrix Award winner and my favorite klutz, Savannah Guthrie.
Wow. Well, I made it up here, literally. Now you know how difficult that was. I want to say thank you to Matt. You blow me away. Every day, actually, working with Matt, it blows me away. I count myself lucky to have someone who is a friend and also kind of my idol. And he's the most generous person I know, and now you really know because you were so generous with what you just said. Too generous. Thank you. So, let me get this straight. I have to follow Matt Lauer, and I am the last speech. Really? Don't worry, my speech is only 15, 20 minutes long. Just kidding. It's 3 minutes. You won't feel a thing. If you had told me 20 years ago, no, if you had told me 10 years ago that I would be honored at an event like this, that Matt Lauer would introduce me at a ceremony hosted by Katie Couric, after the paramedics had revived me, I would have shrieked in joy and shock and disbelief. Matt and Katie, do you guys remember the first time I was on the Today Show? Like pink blazer, the Rachel hairdo, even though it was already 2005? Yeah, I didn't think so. It feels so nice to be up here and in the company of such extraordinary women. And though this is an honor for women in our business, I have to tell you, I don't have any bumper sticker worthy wisdom or catchy female empowerment slogans. Every few months, I sit down with our interns at the Today Show, and time after time, year after year, the number one question they ask, what is it like to be a woman in this business? And to be honest with you, I'm never quite sure how to answer that. So here's how I think about it. I got here not because I'm a woman or despite being a woman. I got here just being a woman. In fact, right now I'm going to confess to you all the girly things I have done in my career. I have worn my heart on my sleeve. I have wondered if I am good enough. I have felt like I am on the ballot every day. I have hated my hair. I have compared myself to others and lost. I have let them see me sweat. I have even let them see me cry. But here's some other girly things I've done. I've worked hard. I've put in the hours. I've studied. I've overstudied. I've grown 2 humans in my belly. And most importantly, I have recognized that the real source of my success is far outside myself. So no, I'm not the tough as nails, blazer-wearing, 80s working woman who for me growing up was the stereotypical image of feminism. I am a combo platter of anxiety and calm, confidence and doubt, fear and courage, vulnerability and invincibility, fragileness and solid granite strength. I am all of these things at once. What I believe, as a woman in this business, it's good to be tough, but it's even better to be you. When I think about how I got here, as improbable as it is, when I really think about it, I return to the same thing over and over again. I've been lucky and I have been blessed. Maybe it isn't fashionable or even acceptable in a room like this to put it in those terms, but that's the bottom line. Lucky and blessed. And over the years, I have realized that as wonderful and exciting and gratifying as all of this can be, I must hold it at a certain distance. Being successful in your career is a really good thing, but it is not an ultimate thing. I'm at my best when I remember this, and I'm at my worst when I do not. I have a little girl at home. So when I think about a better world for women, this is who I think about. I think about her wild, tumbleweed curls and her crazy spirit, the confidence and joy that just seem to naturally course through her veins and radiate from every pore. This is girl power in its raw state. I look at her daily and I think, please, world, don't shatter her. And yet, she will grow up and life will happen and it's up to me to equip her. So I consider, what must she know? I try to think like a journalist. What's essential? What does it all boil down to? What is the nut of the nut? I want her to hold 2 simultaneous truths in her heart. 1, you are precious, rare, unique among all humans and treasured beyond speaking. And 2, you're small, a tiny speck, no better, no worse, no more or less than anybody else. Only by holding these 2 paradoxical truths in our hearts can we all weather this big, sometimes sad, often exhilarating, occasionally overwhelming, but always beautiful world. I'm going to tell her, this is how you rise and shine. Thank you for this honor.
How inspiring was this? Once again, let's give all our winners a huge round of applause. This is one of my favorite days of the year, so I hope you all have enjoyed yourselves as much as everybody on the stage, I think I can say, have. Congratulations again to our honorees. Many thanks to our esteemed presenters. I thought they all did a fabulous job. And of course, a very bright future to all of our scholarship winners. New York Women in Communications also wants to thank Hearst Magazines for sponsoring this year's Matrix Award and for making a lasting contribution to the next generation of communications leaders. And to all of you, our sponsors and guests today, thank you for joining us to commemorate the achievements of these outstanding women. So, a couple of points. Please don't forget the online auction. You can visit CharityBuzz.com and bid on some great one-of-a-kind experiences, including dinner with Matt Lauer. Just kidding. I just threw that in. Proceeds will all go to the scholarship program. I know Matt would be really excited to contribute. Anyway, thanks again for coming. We'll see you next year when Matrix will be hosted by Interpublic Group. Have a great day, everyone.